This is Know Your Game and welcome to part 3 of the Zelda Timeline. Can you believe that 3 weeks have passed? I can't. This week is the final episode for the Zelda Timeline, so you better watch it. I've poured my heart and soul to this. But all jokes aside though, thanks a lot for everything guys. Anyways, enough to chit chat, let's dive in. Today we'll talk about the adult timeline, Breath of the Wild, and a reminder that you should watch the other parts first. They're all interconnected, so you should check out everything first. Otherwise, you'll most likely be confused for the whole duration of the video. So, let me explain something first, in case you need some help. Part 1 is the Fallen Hero timeline, Part 2 is the story before the split timelines as well as the child timeline, and Part 3, which is now, is gonna be about the adult timeline as well as where Breath of the Wild stands on the Legend of Zelda timeline. So yeah, stick around to the end. So, this timeline starts right after the events of Ocarina of Time. This is the timeline where the Hero of Time disappeared from Hyrule after being sent back from time. So, in a timeline without the hero, the 7 sages were forced to only seal Ganondorf in the Sacred Realm. With the Triforce of Power though. The Triforce of Wisdom is of course still with Zelda. However, the Triforce of Courage split into 8 pieces when Link traveled through time. And with no one to return the Master Sword to its pedestal, Zelda did it. Anyways, centuries later, Ganondorf escaped, and used the Triforce of Power to bring darkness to Hyrule. However, when no hero appeared, they turned to another solution. The gods. They pleaded and pleaded, and the gods answered. By drowning Hyrule though. The gods would then choose who would live and who wouldn't. Those who would live would be transported to the mountains, and those that wouldn't would just have to accept fate. The Triforce of Wisdom is also split into 2. One part stayed with the king who will die, and the other stayed with his daughter who would survive. Hundreds of years later, Ganondorf escapes to the surface world. Predictable. He orders Helmarok King to kidnap girls with pointed ears, in hopes of finding Zelda and getting the Triforce of Wisdom. Well, long story short, it didn't work. Helmarok King accidentally kidnapped Link's sister, Aero. So, the King of Red Lions, a boat from the gods, was given to Link to rescue Aero. He collects the Goddess Pearls to prove his worth, and the gods acknowledges him. A path to Hyrule then opens. Link draws the Master Sword from its pedestal, and with the help of Tetra and her pirate crew, Link rescues Aero. However, when Link and Ganondorf battled each other, Link failed to defeat Ganondorf. Why, you might ask? Well, it's because the Master Sword lost its power to repel evil when Ganondorf killed the sages of Earth and Wind. So, with no other choice, Link and Tetra ran back to Hyrule. There, the King of the Red Lions, the ship, reveals the fact that he is the king that asked the gods for the flood. The very king. So, he then mends the Triforce of Wisdom, and Tetra somehow wakes as Zelda. Link then restores the power back to the Master Sword and gathers the pieces of the Triforce of Courage to reopen the way to Hyrule. But realizes that Zelda got kidnapped by Ganondorf. The Triforce is then finally reunited again, whole. But Ganondorf tried to touch the Triforce and make a wish. But right before Ganondorf touches the Triforce, the king touches it first and wishes for Hyrule to be washed up again. Together, Link and Zelda defeat Ganondorf and return to the surface. And above the waves, Zelda becomes Tetra again. And so, the game, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, ends with Link and Tetra setting sail to find new lands. The end. Continuing on their journey, Link and Tetra happen upon the world of the Ocean King. Thus marks the beginning of the game Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass. To investigate a rumor about disappearing ships in the vicinity, Tetra boards the ghost ship and is taken away by it. Link falls into the ocean trying to rescue Tetra, but washes up on Merkei Island. There, Link meets a fairy by the name of Ciela, and her so-called grandfather Oshus. So, Link teams up with Ciela and a steamboat captain that goes by the name Linebeck to find the ghost ship. He goes on a bit of an adventure and gathers clues from the Temple of the Ocean King, which he navigates using the Phantom Hourglass. Link finds the ghost ship after rescuing all the spirits of power, wisdom, and courage. Leaf, Neri, and surprisingly, Ciela. On the ship, Link finds Tetra turned to stone with her life force taken from her. Her life force was drained by a malevolent creature named Bellum. To defeat Bellum, Link is tasked to find 3 pure metals to forge the Phantom Sword. Oshus then reveals that he is the Ocean King and fuses the Phantom Hourglass with the Phantom Sword. With the Phantom Sword, Link defeats Bellum and saves Tetra. Together, they return back to their world and continued on their journey to find a new continent. Finally, after a ton of adventuring, the duo finally found a new continent. On the continent, spirit tracks are everywhere, and at the center stood the Tower of Spirits. These were created by the Locomo to bind another demon king, Maladus, to the land. Tetra named the land New Hyrule. Real original Tetra. But in the next 100 years, the spirit tracks begin to disappear. Link, a royal engineer, and Zelda, a descendant of Tetra, were sent to the Tower of Spirits to investigate. However, their train is derailed by Chancellor Cole and Byrne. Chancellor Cole, advisor of Princess Zelda, then reveals that he's a demon who wants to revive Maladus. Byrne, Cole's ally, separates Zelda from her body and is then carried to the top of the Tower of Spirits to be used as a vessel for Maladus. Link and Princess Zelda's ghost travels around and goes to 4 temples. Why? Well, it's not sightseeing. It's to restore the spirit tracks in the Tower of Spirits. And so they climb the Tower of Spirits, but was too late. Maladus had already possessed Zelda's body. So they chase Maladus through the Dark Realm, and together they defeat Cole and Maladus using the Bow of Light and the Locomo Sword. Zelda regains her body, and thus marks the end of Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. Much as that, it also marks the end of the adult timeline. For now. You might be wondering, hey, didn't he say that he'll talk about Breath of the Wild? Why isn't he talking? Was this clickbait? No, I assure you, it isn't. Just chill, guys. So, Breath of the Wild. The timeline placement of Bot W will be explained later, so just chill. I'll talk about what Bot W has in store in the game. You know, the plot. So, let's begin. 10,000 years before Bot W, the Sheikah made amazing technology and Hyrule flourishes. Nice. But then, fearing the return of Ganon, they made divine beasts and the Guardians. When Calamity Ganon appears, the Link and Zelda of that time fought him, and with the help of the divine beasts as well as the Guardians, they won. However, the King of Hyrule became paranoid, afraid that the Sheikah, who has immense technological power, might betray him. So, he exiled all of them. A part of them gave up their tech, and a part of them even betrayed everyone and became worshippers of Ganon. That part is called the Yiga clan. So, 9,883 years after that, a Princess Zelda was born and a prophecy was made to warn the people of Hyrule that Ganon was returning. But since the people of Hyrule had already lost all their tech, they had to go excavating. They planned to redo everything their ancestors did in hopes for the chance of a success. They restored and activated all of the Guardians and divine beasts that they found. They also chose 4 people from all 4 races of Hyrule to pilot the divine beasts. They are Mipha, Daruk, Urbosa, last and most definitely least, Revali. Around this time, a knight also drew the Master Sword from his pedestal in Korok Forest, and his name is, you guessed it, Link. The 4 pilots and Link are dubbed champions. And so, on the day of the calamity, The now 17-year-old Zelda worked hard for her powers to awake. She tries by going to all the springs of the goddesses and pray there. But minutes after she prayed at the last of the three springs, the calamity starts. Ganon instantly releases his malice, a kind of evil substance, and infects the guardians with his evil, and turns them all into enemies of Hyrule. The champions, who were close by with Zelda, rushed back to their divine beast in hopes of defeating Ganon with it, but were too late because Calamity Ganon had already sent 4 Blight Ganons to each of the divine beasts. Unfortunately, they died because of them. Link then got fatally wounded while protecting Zelda, so Link was sent to the Shrine of Resurrection to heal up, while Zelda would go to Hyrule Castle and face Ganon head on. Well, long story short, it worked, but not forever. 100 years later, Link wakes up, fully recharged and ready to fight some demons. However, he lost his memory. Okay, wait, hold up. I have to explain something first. Breath of the Wild is unlike any other Zelda game ever made. Why? Well, because it's open world, meaning there is no place where you gotta go first, fight first, or anything. Everything would be up to you. In normal games, you have to do the quest first, then defeat the big bad boss, right? Well, in Bot W, you don't. You can just fight Ganon right after you wake up, with considerably less weapons and hearts, of course. So, knowing the infinite possibilities of playing Bot W, I'll just have to explain what you should do for a more right plot. So, anyways, he completes all the shrines in the Great Plateau and journey to all 4 of the Hyrule's race to defeat the Blight Ganon, controlling the divine beasts. Well, he succeeded. Then, at some point, you go to Korok Forest and get the Master Sword. Lastly, Link would go to Hyrule Castle and fight Calamity Ganon. But since Ganon got out prematurely, well, he came out a bit grotesque. Part Ganon, part Malice, and part Guardian. Anyways, after Link defeats it, he then gets transported to Hyrule Field, where he fights Dark Beast Ganon, easily one of the easiest bosses in all of game history. It's basically the pure incarnation of Ganon, a boar. Anyways, after that, Zelda came back, and together, Link and Zelda would work hard to rebuild Hyrule. The end. So, where is it in the timeline, you may ask? Well, the answer is unclear. Very unclear. Why? Well, because Bot W has references to every single timeline. All the split timeline has a reference in Bot W. So somehow, after all the split timeline, it sort of fuses with each other, making a timeline where all the events of all the timelines happen. Okay, saying this out loud might make me sound a bit crazy, so let me just give you an example. In Bot W, there's a place with the name Tal Peak, which is a place in Link's Awakening. Then there's a mountain called Mount Daphnes. Daphnes is the name of the king of the Red Lions from Wind Waker. And lastly, there's Faron Woods in Bot W, which is also a place in Twilight Princess. All 3 of these are examples from each of the 3 split timelines. So I ask again, how? Well, I don't expect you to answer since I'm pretty sure you also don't know. The Zelda community has made many theories, but there's always some sort of problem with it. Anyways, I'd appreciate it if you can comment what you think of the existence of Bot W. So yeah, basically it's a timeline where Link and Zelda won against Ganon on the day of the calamity. So yeah. Oh, and another bonus, Bot W2, the sequel, takes place maybe 1 or 2 or 5 years after Bot W. It's a direct sequel, hence the short gap. But it's still unconfirmed. But anyways, thanks for all your support, guys. Thanks for all the views. I got 1,110 views on YouTube already, and that's just epic. Thanks, guys. But I got some bad news. I'll be taking a break next week, so no more episode next week. Sorry guys, but if you think about it, I've been posting videos and episodes every week non-stop. So I need a break. Besides, I also have a ton of homework and a ton of work to do. Don't worry, I'll post again next week. Next week, I mean. Sorry about that. Well, see you next week. Goodbye.